try to bring you high-quality educational and informational content every single day. Why do you think the price is having such an anemic time? The news story of the hour. Jump onto the chart. Is this the beginning of a massive financial unraveling? We got to add a little addendum to the show map today, so we start here on the daily. Now, we've been looking at the RSI on Bitcoin's daily chart for the last several days. It always has been, but it's been increasing over the last 50 years since the government has been getting bigger.
Hey guys, what's going on? Jebb here, and welcome back to Coffee and Crypto Live. This is your week daily morning show where we bring you the latest in everything Bitcoin, and in today's episode, we are going to talk about how Bitcoin has to move or die. Not really. But you've heard the analogy before that if you don't move, you will perish. If you stay right where you are, you will only move down or you will crash. It's often something that's talked about in self-help circles of if you don't improve, you are unimproving. If you don't get better, you are getting worse. If you don't get richer, you are getting poorer. Whatever the analogy is, that's kind of where Bitcoin finds itself right now. Bitcoin is in a position right now where it can either go into a big rally and break above 25,236, or Bitcoin is likely then going to have to go into a major correction because it just isn't showing the signs of strength that it needs to stay where it is. And frankly, without a big rally on Bitcoin, it really looks like we are repeating the failures of February, where we attempted to go through a major breakout, breaking above that level, breaking into the bull market zone that I believe starts at $28,545. And if it does fail to get up there, then, of course, we're still down here in accumulation. And we're still down here just waiting for something to help us through that zone between $25,236 and $28,545, as we've spoken about extensively on this channel. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Is Bitcoin going to be able to break through that zone? Is there anything coming up in the news that could give it a boost? We shall see. I am your host, Jebb McAfee, here at Crypto Jebb on the Coffee and Crypto Morning live stream. We go live 5 days a week. We go live 5 days a week, every single morning at 10 a.m. Eastern, and we also upload videos on the weekends. Make sure to stay tuned for those. We've got some great content coming out this weekend about my long-term price prediction over the rest of this year for Bitcoin. I'm going to break down exactly why and where and when and how and what I think Bitcoin is going to do this year. So make sure you're on the lookout for that. I believe you're going to enjoy that one. All right, let's go ahead and read some chat. We've got Mike Lowry in chat, our blue name and our green name. What does blue and green make? There's a place I stayed one time called Blue Green. It was a, this is not sponsored, by the way, but it was a, what was it, condo vacation rental, something like that. I was there with my family. Anyway, Mike Lowry is in chat. We've got Grand Roofing Incorporated in chat, Crypto Mini Bike in chat, Crypto Ben Franklin in chat. All three of them said the exact same thing. Good morning, everyone. Like 7 or 8 people all said the exact same thing. Good morning, everyone. Was that coordinated? I feel like somebody coordinated something over in Twitter DMs to all say the exact same thing. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everybody. We've got Rockin' Metal News in chat. Said, hey, Jebb. How are you, Rockin' Metal News? Good to see you. B&B Crypto Alerts said, morning, Jebb. Big Hands Dan. Big Hands Dan is in chat. We got to make sure we stay hydrated, by the way, so... This is Coffee and Crypto, but you guys know I don't drink coffee anymore, so this is agua in crypto, I suppose. We've got Big Hands Dan in chat, said, good morning, Jebb. I met 2 Dans yesterday. Actually, I think I've met 3 Dans in the last couple of days at the meetings. Oh My is in chat. Mario de Leon is in chat. I used to know somebody whose last name was Leon? Yes, it was Leon, I think. Yes, it was Leon. That's what that was his name. We've got NFT Swizz in chat. Good morning. We've got Tyler on Gaming Crypto Military Vet. Good to see you, my friend. Giro504. Good morning, Boss Jebb. Good morning, Boss G. We got John Don. That's a cool name. Let's see. Win Peoples is in chat. Lazarus Hand is in chat. Brent Holt said, good morning, Jebb and fam. Been a few days since I've been in here, and I've missed it. Hope you are all doing well. Thank you so much. I am very excited for this week. I'm also very excited for the rest of this month and moving on into April because if you guys don't know, we are going to be having our baby at kind of any day now. She could be here at any point. We are 35 weeks now, and she is threatening to come early and has been for 2 months. So we shall see. Hopefully she'll stay in there a little bit longer. There we go. When people said I will drink coffee in your stead, I actually take that back. I did have a cup of coffee yesterday just to kind of treat myself because we were in Walmart, and so we made it kind of fun. We had some drinks in Walmart. non-alcoholic coffee drinks, but it was good times. Anyway, enough about me. Let's go ahead and jump onto the charts. If you guys are looking forward to today's stream, I want you to do a couple things for me. First of all, hit that like button. Second of all, hit that subscribe button. Most of you have probably already done that, but what you may not have done recently is gone and told a friend about the Coffee and Crypto live stream here. If this is bringing value to you, you might know somebody who it will bring value to also. So if you wouldn't mind, just go share the link to today's stream with 10 people. Do it right now. You can listen in your ears to what I'm talking about on CoinMarketCap. You guys have seen this 100 times. I even do the market recap on CoinMarketCap in a total audio way, so you guys can just listen to it. So go share the stream with somebody you think would find this helpful. All right. Over on CoinMarketCap, we shall start. Bitcoin sits at $24,825 and change right now, down 0.2% over the last 24 hours. This is where I say that Bitcoin must move or die. Now, I don't mean the cryptocurrency project itself. I'm talking about this rally. This rally's life is in danger right now. And I'll show you why. Ethereum is down 0.97% over the last 24 hours. When you're up or down 1%, then in stocks, I mean, that's like, wow, you just made a lot of money. But in cryptocurrency, that is essentially just sideways movement. That essentially means that the market hasn't done a whole lot of anything in the last 24 hours. Now, they're moving down slightly today, which is my concern. I'm concerned that Bitcoin is going to move down quite a lot over the next 2 weeks, but we'll talk about that in a second. Bitcoin is currently up 14%, Ethereum up 7% over the last 7 days, Bitcoin and ETH up 46 and 37% over the last 90 days respectively, and up 49 and 38% respectively over the course of this year so far here in the first, what would it be, about 75, 76, 77 days of the year. Bitcoin is knocking on $500 billion door, but of course, if it can't get above 25,236, it won't get above 500 billion. If you look at what it would take to get a $500 billion Bitcoin, it is almost identical. It is almost identical to that level of resistance that we're looking at on Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies market capitalization chart, and over on not its market capitalization chart, but over on its actual chart. If you see here, let's just look here at back on Pi Day. I forgot to mention that it was Pi Day. I'm a giant nerd. I should have said that. 3.141599265. I think that's the first 9 digits of pi. It was sitting at $500 billion. Now let's look at the price. Again, we're going to look at right here, 1:05 p.m. What was the price of Bitcoin at that time? 1:05 p.m. It was $25,969. So, what does that mean? That means that if we look at our chart over here on Bitcoin, essentially the level of resistance to contend with on our market capitalization chart would be roughly $25,900. I'm going to make that kind of a generic level, but this level essentially is, and I'll just go ahead and draw some text here, 500 billion market cap. If you didn't know, you actually can draw text on your lines just so that you have them labeled, and I'm probably going to start doing that more just because I think it would be helpful for everybody to be able to see. So let's go ahead and make that very, very, very obvious right there. And then at the same time, we will set the text here for November 5th local high. I like to mark up my charts just so that you guys can see what's going on a little bit easier. So you can see the same thing is happening here. Now I don't know if it kept it here. Let's I'm gonna make that a little bit smaller. There we go. But anyway, what I'm getting at is that this level right here of 25,236 is the beginning of our movement into the accumulation zone. If you'll recall to our stream that we did a couple of days ago, I believe this may have been yesterday actually, and you look at the daily chart, I drew this zone between two very critical levels, and I said everything below it is accumulation phase, everything above it is bull market. The territory of the movement when we went into this action right here, all of this, that was a bear market. Now we can cut the market in half based on this level between 25,236 and 28,545 and call everything above it more or less bull market territory. It's not that simple. I know we need confirmations. Everything below it is accumulation. What do I mean by that? Well, if you look back into history on Bitcoin, we saw the same thing happen back here in 2014 and 2015. There were certain specific zones that Bitcoin needed to break through, and I'm going to be a little bit more general than in our today's market. In today's market, I'm using down to the dollar, but here I'll just kind of give you an idea of what I'm talking about. As you can see right here, in 2014, 2015, Bitcoin was under this zone, and it was stuck down here for almost a year. might be hard to tell just on the way the candlesticks look, but this is almost a year of price action that we saw Bitcoin live out in the vast majority of 2015. From there, Bitcoin had to break through a zone. This zone was constituted by accumulation phase highs and bear market lows, as you can see in this history here. Bitcoin needed to break through that zone to be able to go into a major bull market, and when it did, we were off to the races. That was one of the first things that we saw take place that was very bullish. Then we also saw the halving come into play not that long after, right as we were above that zone, and we ended up going into our bull market. If we did the same thing here, then what you would end up seeing happen is that when the halving comes into play, somewhere around between March and May next year, then Bitcoin would be sitting up here just above this accumulation zone, kind of bouncing off of it, maybe up to at the height $40,000 to $50,000. And then we start blasting off into the next bull market. So just keep that in mind. That's kind of the zone that we need to pay close attention to. All right, looking back at CoinMarketCap, because I want to run down the rest of CoinMarketCap as well, we will take a look. Tether is sideways. Good. It's the way it's supposed to be. It's the only cryptocurrency up here in the top 10, other than USDC, that's supposed to not be moving. Binance is up 0.33% over the last 24 hours. It is bucking the trend a little bit. It seems to be that is just Binance's way of sticking it to Bitcoin a little bit. It is rallying slightly of its own accord. I wouldn't put too much stock in that. It is trying to creep past $50 billion. That would be a major level of resistance on Binance. So that would equate to about $313 on the chart. If any of you guys want to draw that as a level of resistance, $50 billion will naturally be very important for Binance. XRP down 1.16% over the last 24 hours. Sitting at 36 cents. Cardano down 4% almost over the last 24 hours, sitting at 32 cents. Cardano is in such prime buy territory, it's not even funny. People that buy Cardano now are going to make a lot of money in the next 5 years. You can quote me on that. Feel free. Polygon is sitting at $1.13. It's down 3.44% in the last 24 hours. Dogecoin down 3.76%. Binance is sitting stable. It's interesting. Binance is no longer shedding. Market capitalization is actually hovering at $8.3 billion. So just keep that in mind. We've been looking for Binance to kind of Binance USD to kind of fall off the map and for Solana to overtake it. But that is taking longer than we anticipated because that shrinkage of the market capitalization has basically completely stopped. And Solana is down. It's down 5% over the last 24 hours, whereas Binance's market capitalization has barely shifted. Okay, so that's the overall trend on the market capitalization charts. But let's go ahead and look at the dominance, because the dominance is a very important part of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency as well. If we look at the last year or so on Bitcoin's dominance, it's largely been sideways. We've seen a lot of movement up here on Bitcoin between 40, let's call it 37, and then all the way up here to 47. Ever since the collapse of FTX, if you remember, the collapse of FTX happened on November the 8th. That was election day, right around here. Bitcoin has actually been gaining dominance, and Ethereum has been too, to some degree. This is a very significant trend, because when you see this trend and you see that Bitcoin and ETH are gaining dominance, then that dominance has to come from somewhere. Bitcoin, ETH, and Tether, actually, all three of those are gaining market dominance. But market dominance is being lost in other places. Where is it being lost? Was largely being lost in this other category. We've seen a pretty large loss in market dominance coming in from the others, coming in from things like Binance USD, coming in from things like Cardano, coming in from things like Dogecoin, I think, has actually lost a little bit. It's actually gained a little bit, excuse me. But the point is, there's market dominance shifting out of the lower cap altcoins, depending on which one you look at. It kind of goes back and forth. And they're going into Bitcoin. Bitcoin is gaining dominance. And it doesn't seem like that big of a trend, but it actually is a pretty large trend. We've seen Bitcoin gain from 38% market dominance up to 42.5%. That's a nearly 5% market dominance gain. It doesn't look like that big of a deal here on this chart, but it actually is relatively significant, because whenever you see Bitcoin gaining market dominance, oftentimes that means that you are entering into the beginning stages of a bull market. Why? Well, towards the end of a bear market and into accumulation phase, normally the altcoin prices are so low and their communities have shrunk so much and their development teams have disappeared to such an extent that people don't want to invest in those altcoins anymore. And people don't want to invest in an altcoin that's going to be labeled a security, and the development team's going to have no idea how to handle that, because they're a bunch of tech nerds and they have no idea how to work with securities law, and they can't afford $5 million a year for lawyers and disclosures. So they're worried that some of their favorite altcoins might disappear if Gary Gensler is telling the truth, that he thinks that everything but Bitcoin is a security and he's going to try and regulate them as such. That is a very difficult environment to gain confidence to invest in altcoins unless you are just an absolute diehard altcoin fan. And we have plenty of those. But you can't just build the bull market on the backs of the people that are already in the cryptocurrency space, because if you could, then we would have done it already. We need to get fresh money in. And getting that fresh money in necessitates that those people that are coming into the space with their money are confident in investing in the asset that they are, well, going to put their money in. And if they're worried that it's going to be labeled a security, if they're worried that it's going to collapse, if they're worried it's going to go the direction of Luna, if they're worried they're going to lose it on FTX or Coinbase or something, or BlockFi, then there is a very big barrier to entry. Bitcoin doesn't have those. Bitcoin is tried, tested, and proven. It is the most powerful why in all of cryptocurrency. That's why it's worth $500 billion. And that's why it makes up the vast majority of the top 10 cryptocurrencies market capitalization, which are the ones that really matter in the first place. There's a few more gems out there in the top 100, but really cryptocurrency is the top 10 to top 20. That's really where the actual action is taking place in this space, cryptocurrency-wise. Now, Bitcoin has a very powerful why. What is it? Well, I actually just explained this to someone named Dan last night. Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies have two completely different use cases. Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency and the others are cryptocurrencies as well, but Bitcoin has a very niche use case. Bitcoin has a use case of being the greatest solution to one of the greatest financial crises after greed that we've ever seen in the history of mankind. Now, again, the greatest issues that money runs into are moral ones of pride, greed, lusting after money. Those are the real problems that people have with money. But as far as some of the actual technological and societal problems that people have with money, inflation is paramount. Every single currency in the history of mankind where anyone has been able to control artificially the supply of has eventually gone parabolic and inflated into oblivion. You look at Maori stones in the Pacific Ocean, in the Polynesian economies, actually. If you look at the agri beads in Africa, you look at shark's teeth that Native Americans used to trade. You look at any currency. You look at the shekel. You look at the Roman denarius. You look at their talents. You look at the Greeks' currency. You look at many currencies that are alive and dying today right now. Every currency in the history of the world that has ever had a manipulated supply eventually collapsed, because if you play with fire long enough, you're going to get burned. And then if you keep playing with fire after you get burned long enough, eventually you're going to burn up. We've already been burned. The Great Depression, the Great Recession, the aftermath of the pandemic. We've been getting burned because we've been manipulating currencies for over 100 years. We keep doing it, eventually the fire is going to consume us. I'm not saying that's going to happen in the next 5 years, the next 10 years. I think the dollar has a long way to go before it undergoes some kind of currency collapse. I don't think that's the world we're moving into relatively soon, but it is off in the distance. And any student of economic history sees it. And Bitcoin is the answer, because Bitcoin cannot be inflated, period. I understand the concerns that maybe Bitcoin doesn't have the size to lubricate the entire global supply chain. We'd need $100 trillion to do that, to lubricate all the gears and cogs of the global monetary system. There's only one candidate for that, and it's the United States dollar. There's nothing even close. I understand if perhaps the argument is that Bitcoin itself will not be the world reserve currency, but Bitcoin very easily could be the backing for whatever the world reserve currency is today, tomorrow, next year, next decade, and through the rest of this century. It could easily be the backing. We could easily move into something that Safadine almost wrote a book about, the Bitcoin standard. We could easily do that. And so people realize that. What use case are you going to find with Ethereum? There are massive use cases for Ethereum, but they're harder to adopt. Many of the technologies that Ethereum thrives on, and Ethereum is doing very well, by the way, it just gets harder and harder as you go down the list of altcoins. Many of the use cases for the altcoins are more niche. You have to get more adoption. You have to get over a certain S-curve, a certain inflection point of adoption where you're large enough that you can get whatever industry or sector it is that you're trying to impact to adopt you, but you also have to figure out how to afford the development costs to build the cryptocurrency and the networking in the first place to get that deployed. That's a very difficult problem. The startup capital costs in cryptocurrency, that's very hard. Bitcoin doesn't have that. Anybody can buy Bitcoin like that. Boom. They've got it. You've got $20 trillion that could buy Bitcoin tomorrow if they wanted. If you're building something that's going to replace the United States medical record system, that's a great business model. You probably need $50 billion and about half of the hospitals in the United States to get on board before you can actually deploy that. It should happen. It's great technology. It's worth billions. The hurdle in getting it deployed is the hardship, and it will happen, I believe. But all of this to go back to the dominance of Bitcoin. Why is Bitcoin's dominance rallying so much? Because it's so much easier for people to understand its why. It is so hard to get someone to wrap their head around, why should I buy Ethereum? I can build an application without Ethereum. What's the benefit of building it on Ethereum? That's a hard question to explain to anybody that doesn't have a lot of technical expertise. Same thing with Cardano. Same thing with any of the applications of your favorite cryptocurrencies. Dot, Matic, Polkadot. I already said Dot. Dot, Matic, Chainlink, whatever it is. Explaining that to somebody outside of cryptocurrency is difficult. We have an advertising problem. Bitcoin is very simple. We say, hey, look, you are being silently taxed 2% at least, right now, like 6% every single year. You put 100 grand under your mattress, it'll be worth the equivalent of $2,000 in today's money 50 or 70 years from now because we're being inflated at that rate. You can put money under a mattress and not report it on taxes, and I'm not saying you do that, but let's just talk in theory here. You put it under your mattress, nobody knows about it, you come back and it'll be worthless in 100 years. That's not the kind of currency you build a civilization on, at least not a stable civilization on. We've relied so heavily on the never-ending march of technology and of nuclear proliferation to demand global peace that we've built a giant bubble over the last 150 years. I'm not talking about something since 2008. I'm talking about we continued building the bubble that led to the Great Depression, but we just kept building it bigger. It pops eventually. And I'm not saying it's happening this decade, because frankly, I don't think it will. I think we'll be able to keep going, but sometime this century, it probably will. And when that happens, that will bring apocalyptic scenarios into our economy like we have never seen before, and people will have to turn to something else, and that will be Bitcoin. And some people are starting to realize that. Everybody that invested in incandescent light bulb technology 100 years ago didn't realize that eventually, in this one room alone, there'd be 500 different things that use lights. My computer screen, my soundboard, my stream deck, my smartphone, this microphone probably somehow has an LED in it. I don't know why. This light box I have right here, these two lights behind me, the light on my wife's phone, the light on the Wi-Fi route, all these lights here, people couldn't have possibly comprehended 100 years ago that the little Edison bulb that was hanging on a wire down in their dirt floor house was going to do all of that. But they realized that there was something off in the distance, how this was going to change humanity. And so anybody who was an investor that had any way of investing in that industry would have made a lot of money to do so. Now, it's kind of difficult to invest in light bulbs, right? There wasn't exactly a company that you could do that in, as far as I know. But the technology was there, and people saw the writing on the wall. People are seeing the writing on the wall on Bitcoin, and people will see the writing on the wall on the other cryptocurrencies as well, but it is a more difficult sell, because Bitcoin revolutionizes everything finance. The same way the light bulb revolutionized everything indoor after dark. It's kind of a big sector, isn't it? Half of the day, and where people spend 60, 70, 80% of their time. We completely revolutionized that entire space. The light bulb did a lot. So too will Bitcoin. You've got to give it time. It took 130, 140 years. Light technology like that is like 140 years old now. It took that long to get to where we are today, where you can just flick a switch and then boom, you've got something almost as bright as the sun shining in your eyes. It takes time. So let's look at the price action of Bitcoin. Bitcoin has been gaining market dominance. That is a good thing. We want Bitcoin to gain market dominance. It indicates that people are getting confident in Bitcoin as well. The speculation on the altcoins has died down a little bit. Altcoins will get their time. The beginning of a bull market is not their time. The beginning of a bull market should often be driven by Bitcoin because it is more reliable. It is something that we can build on as bedrock. The tricky thing is, right now, Bitcoin is building this bull market wrong. It is building this bull market incorrectly. What do I mean? All three of these rallies that we have witnessed have taken place post CPI data drop. You can see all of these CPI data drops right here. These rallies are not resulting from events within Bitcoin and cryptocurrency themselves, because there's not a whole lot going on here. Go to Cointelegraph with me. You can watch along or you can do it yourself. Go to Cointelegraph. When was the last time you went to Cointelegraph or CoinDesk? I mean, it's not about the vendor. It's not about the news the agency. But when was the last time you saw a major piece of news in the cryptocurrency space that was really making waves? When was it? It's probably FTX and BlockFi or the SEC banning Bitcoin, Kraken from doing staking. All of these other things, Silvergate, Silicon Valley Bank, those are things that are happening outside of cryptocurrency. I was one of the first people 6 months ago to start raising the alarm that, guys, look, Bitcoin is being driven by extra market factors, such as the balance sheet, the Fed rate, the war in Ukraine, the impending food crisis for a couple 100 million people around the world because of supply chain difficulties. By the way, do you realize fertilizer is like necessary to feed about 5 billion of the 8 billion people we have? And that supply chain is in the process of undergoing the biggest disruption that it's ever witnessed. For the big three, your phosphates, your salt, those fertilizers, your nitrates, those fertilizers, those supply chains are just having to be completely retooled in many places. You need those fertilizers to make sure that people eat. This is a tumultuous world we live in. And so those things that are happening outside in the world are the things driving Bitcoin right now. And people keep saying, Jebb, why are you talking about geopolitics? Jebb, why are you talking about macro? Because it's what's impacting Bitcoin. And you came to this channel to know what's going to happen next to Bitcoin. So that's why I'm telling you. That's why I'm here to tell you that what's going on inside of cryptocurrency is not doing, frankly, a whole lot to Bitcoin because there's not a whole lot going on right now. And that's kind of the problem. If Bitcoin is just, therefore, a derivative of macroeconomics and geopolitics and is not being driven of its own merit, of its own accord, which there is plenty. By the way, Bitcoin has plenty of merit. But if Bitcoin is not being driven by its own merit, then Bitcoin is going to struggle to prove itself against anything else. If all Bitcoin is doing is following the stock market, if all Bitcoin is doing is moving based on CPI reports and effective federal fund rate hikes, then why would you buy Bitcoin? Why wouldn't you just buy stocks? Well, I mean, there's one reason. Bitcoin's actually rallying. Stocks are not. But if you're the average investor and Bitcoin is not really doing a whole lot of anything in its own industry, you're not seeing, oh, Bitcoin's being adopted by Miami. Oh, Bitcoin's being adopted in Houston. Oh, there's a new city coin. Oh, we've got 2 million new active users of Bitcoin, active wallet addresses in the last 3 months. If there's not anything going on in crypto to that accord, to that effect, then where do you build a bull market? We're not ready. Let me say that again. We are not ready for a bull market in this space. The price action is exciting, and I don't want to come in and rain on the parade any more than anybody else does. I love Bitcoin, and I am very confident in Bitcoin. I believe we'll see $1 million Bitcoin one day. I believe you'll see Bitcoin eating up at least 1% of the greater financial system based on market capitalization, based on transactional throughput in the form of transaction volume. I think you will see that taking place. I think you will see Bitcoin being the backbone and underpinning of major financial systems. And I think stable coins that could be built on top of Bitcoin could do the same thing. I think Lightning Network has great potential. I think Bitcoin could be the backing of certain currencies in the future for the sake of them being stable. I think Bitcoin could be adopted by other countries. But these are things that we are not seeing right now. Why? Is it because Bitcoin is failing? Or is it because Bitcoin's in accumulation? You see, my friends, the things I'm talking about are symptoms of Bitcoin being here in accumulation. It's the same thing that happened here. Right back in this region, at the end of the back half of 2018 and the first half of 2019, nothing was going on here. There were no ETFs coming out. In fact, I remember right here in August of 2018, there was about 3 ETFs that got rejected. One by the Winklevoss twins, one by, I think it was BlackRock. Then we saw, oh goodness, what was it called? Bakkt came out. Bakkt was trying to launch like here, and it failed to launch until like here. And then it came out, and it really had a Starbucks partnership. Cool. Didn't really do a whole lot. This was a boring season. But then we got over here out of the accumulation phase. And by the way, if you want to see the accumulation phase for this market, I would put it roughly about here. I would put it roughly about anything below this level right here. Once we got out of the accumulation phase, and notice we sat up here and bounced over that level for a year and a half We could end up doing the exact same thing where we sit up here and we bounce above 28, in between 28 and 42 for a year or more, moving into the halving. We got up there and then there still wasn't a lot happening. We were above the accumulation zone that I would say getting above meant that we were out of accumulation, if we want to call this A for accumulation, B for bull market up here. We didn't really see a whole lot change until we started seeing the news come in. We saw a huge amount of stimulus. People bought in Bitcoin. Bitcoin rallied up to 20K. Then we saw Michael Saylor get 500 of the top executives in the world into a room together and talked about Bitcoin. Then we saw Elon Musk bought $1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin. We saw Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy buying hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin. We saw new projects developing. We saw a Solana smartphone. We saw all these things that were taking place over here. This was the golden era of innovation, and it was driven by cheap debt and high liquidity. Both of those things are gone. Why? Ask the Fed. The Fed instituted both of those policies of 0% interest rates and extremely high balance sheet and quantitative easing. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you go to U.S. Central Bank balance sheet, compare new price scale. This tracks the balance sheet. This is essentially the way that the Fed, quote unquote, prints money. You can see the balance sheet was increasing by hundreds of billions of dollars every quarter. This was the golden era of Bitcoin. When it stopped, Bitcoin crashed. These are the hurdles, my friends, that Bitcoin will have to face moving into this next bull market. Honestly, I have a price target between $40,000 and $55,000 for the end of this year. I am starting to believe that that may be too aggressive. I am starting to think that that may be too bullish. I haven't really locked that into place yet because I'm going to make that video today. I'm going to think about that some more, but I think I may even drop it down about $5,000, that range. I need to see a lot of bullishness out of Bitcoin, and I'm just not yet. We're not rallying of our own merit. We're rallying because CPI data comes in. But here's the thing. CPI going down should not cause Bitcoin to rally. You know why? Because that means that you are losing less money in the US dollar. And if the dollar is highly inflated, then that's when Bitcoin should be thriving, because Bitcoin was created to be the antithesis to the inflation of the US dollar. If the inflation is high, that should drive Bitcoin to the upside as people flight from the US dollar into Bitcoin. But here's the thing. 10% inflation is actually not that bad. You think it's really bad. Try 90% inflation because you live in Zimbabwe or Argentina. Those are the people that are really going to be using Bitcoin if they understand it. We have an advertising problem, my friends. We need to get out there and tell people, you know, all of this inflation that you're suffering with, that's where Bitcoin comes in. Bitcoin might look like it's not in good shape right now because it's down quite a bit over the last 18 months. It is up 100,000% over the last 10 years. You average it out. You run a 5-year moving average through Bitcoin, and it is up and to the right nonstop forever. Why? Because the underlying asset, the United States dollar, is highly, highly inflating at very rapid rates. And so that's where even just inflation should drive Bitcoin to the upside, and I believe we will see that. So what do I mean? Why do I keep bringing up this delineation between bull market territory and accumulation? When we get up here, this is where, putting it as simply as I can, when we get up here, this is when the media gets interested. Why is Bitcoin struggling right now? It is doing better, technically. Don't get me wrong. We are in the beginning of what could be a major turnaround. I don't mean to put just a bunch of rain on the parade. But what changes when we get above 28,545? People start paying attention again. You know where everybody's focus is right now? They're focused on the fact that Russia has invaded Ukraine, and every pundit is saying accurately that if Russia, well, I take that back. Most pundits aren't saying this, but it's true. If Russia conquers Ukraine and captures the entire country, which is possible still, Ukraine's doing very well for itself. I commend the Ukrainians for defending their country. If Russia conquers that nation, they will declare war on and invade Moldova, especially through the region of Transnistria. There is a tiny little sliver of land right between Moldova and Ukraine that the Russians have had troops stationed in for the last 30 years. The Russians have been intentionally destabilizing Moldova. It's a little nation. If you know the map of Ukraine, it's that little country right there. It's a little bitty country right there. That little country, Moldova, they've been intentionally trying to destabilize it for years. It is not a NATO member. It is not, as far as I'm aware, an EU member either. They would absolutely conquer that, and Moldova would have no chance, unfortunately, for Moldova. But they wouldn't stop there. They would also attack Romania, Poland, Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia. Why? You see, there is something called the oh goodness, it's the Trans-European Steppe, I believe it's called. It's this giant plain that's about 8,000 miles long, goes from Berlin to Kamchatsky over in Russia. You know, that big peninsula over in the Far East, that's called Kamchatsky. It goes all the way over there, or all the way through Siberia. It's massive. It's the Trans-Eurasian Steppe. I'm sorry, that's what it's called. The Trans-Eurasian Steppe. You can run tanks through there like it's nobody's business. I almost said a word I can't say on YouTube. The Germans in the 1940s did that. Napoleon did it. He didn't have tanks, but he did have horses. You can run an army through there and go straight to Moscow very easily, and they realize that if they don't have natural borders, then they can't really do a whole lot about that. Russia's dream is to reestablish the Soviet borders, where they were able to plug the gap in middle Germany so that the mountain ranges could stop any invaders, because you could only run tanks through the very middle part of Germany, and the Russians could very easily plug that. And then you go down towards Bucharest in Romania. That's the other entrance into the rest of Europe, into the Russian part of Europe in that scenario, and then they can plug that too. To do that, they have to conquer, again, all of Poland, all of Latvia, all of Lithuania, all of Estonia, all of Romania, all of Moldova, and half of Germany. And that's what Russia would love to do. So everyone is rightly, and this is all tying back into Bitcoin, but a little history lesson, everyone is rightly focusing on the Russian-Ukrainian war. It is the central defining event that will dictate how the rest of this century goes for Europe. How China acts in the next 10 years will define how the rest of geopolitics for the rest of the century goes. The world has their attention on those things, and on the collapse of banks, and on the impending doom of globalization and what impacts that's brought to the currencies and to the world at large. And that is a good place for the world to have their attention. It is a good place for the world to have their attention. For once, we're actually talking about something that matters. We've been talking about things that don't matter politically for the last 20 years. Now, there's plenty of things that do matter, but we've been looking at things all wrong for the last 20 years, 20, 30 years. Now there are glaring issues in the very fabric of our society, in globalization, in free trade on the high seas, in global fertilizer supply chains, water crises, demographical crises, geopolitical crises. People are focused on those things, and they should be, because they matter. And it makes it harder for them to focus on Bitcoin. Because unfortunately, when you're in a crisis state, people do one of two things. Either they do nothing but focus on new technology, I'm talking about the 50s, or they don't focus on new technology at all. There's kind of two spectrums when there's a crisis going on. There's the, why are you investing in space travel? Why are you trying to go to the moon? Why are you trying to go to Mars? Why do you have the International Space Station? Don't we have enough problems here on Earth? That's the one side. It's kind of where the world is right now. Then you have the other side of, wow, if we just open up our scientific mind and we go to the moon and we go to Mars and we build the International Space Station, then we will learn so many things that we can bring back home and it'll make us better. That's a more optimistic tone. We are very cynical as a human race right now. Why? Because the last 20 years have been a golden age and it ended. And people are mad about it. People are mad. They are upset. They are angry. And they're going to continue getting more angry in the next 3 to 5 years as things unravel and have to be completely rebuilt from the ground up, literally, over the next 10 to 15 years as a result of deglobalization and the destruction of the of freedom of navigation on the high seas, from which 80% of global trade takes place. We're talking $80 trillion. And the lifeblood of every economy. Without open trade on the high seas, most countries starve. I don't think that's going to happen, by the way. I'm not saying that we're going to have a giant famine that kills 1 billion people. I am saying that that is a huge disruption of the global supply chain. People are cynical right now. They have not gone into optimism. Why? Well, in the 50s, people were so optimistic because what had they just gone through? World War II. Now there's peace. Yes, there's this looming threat of the Soviet Union, but if we just build great technology, then we can beat them. And there's this kind of, I don't want to say healthy competition because it's not healthy, but this unifying competition in the West. What did we just come out of? We didn't just come out of a giant crisis. Pandemic, yeah, that's not a World War II level crisis. It is a crisis, especially personally for anyone who lost someone. But it's not that kind of giant crisis. What people remember is the 2000s and the 2010s, and they realize, even if they don't understand the geopolitics and the macro of it, they realize something's different now, and they're upset about it. So instead of moving into optimism, now they moved into cynicism. And so when the world is cynical, they are not as interested in new technology. They are not as interested in SpaceX. They're not as interested in Bitcoin. They're not as interested in new rocket. I forgot what it's called. The heavy launch rocket system, whatever it's called, that NASA's working on to send people back to the moon. People aren't as interested in that because they're interested in being able to buy eggs at a decent price. This is a difficult decade for Bitcoin. I've said it 100,000 times, and I will keep saying it. But the good news is, guys, Bitcoin's technology is great, and Bitcoin's technology carries one of the solutions to many of the problems that humans are facing right now. We just have to go and share it with people. Look, what caused many of the issues that we're running into globally right now? High inflation, easy money, 0% interest rates, unhealthily low interest rates, and central bank manipulation of currencies. All of those things are made impossible by Bitcoin if Bitcoin were adopted as a standard. If Bitcoin were used in our own lives standard, we can decouple ourselves from that system and we can thrive. You can thrive in the system if you know how to play it. 99% of people don't know how to play the system and they don't want to learn. Fair enough. They want to be able to use their currency and it not depreciate every single year. Fine, that's great. Use Bitcoin. We, this decade, have a very important mission that we have not had in this same context over the last several years. And that is that the world is changing and many of the mistakes of old are catching up with us. Many of the mistakes of the last 70 years of monetary policy and geopolitics are catching up with us. And Bitcoin was created at just a time to be a solution. Maybe not the only solution. It's not the only solution. We need a change in the way our politics works. And ultimately, we need the King Jesus on the throne so that he can help guide us, because I don't know if you have checked yourself, but I check myself all the time. I'm like, wow, I'm a messed up human being. I need Christ who's perfect to help me. Bitcoin is not the savior of mankind. Christ is, but it could be part of the solution to many of the problems that we run into in the financial system. And once people realize that, you will see a mass flood into Bitcoin, but that will take time because we have not hit the inflection point. The inflection point of technological adoption has a lot to do with the environment from which that technology is being introduced, and it has much to do with hitting a certain critical mass. Normally about 13.5% of critical mass of the population adopting a certain technology, and then you see the S-curve and it goes boom through the roof and everybody adopts it. Nobody had a microwave, and then when 1 in 7 people had a microwave, everybody has a microwave. Nobody had a refrigerator, and then when 1 in 10 people had a refrigerator, 3 years later, 5 years later, 10 years later, everybody had a refrigerator. No one had a horseless carriage until some people did, and then more people did, and 10 years later, everybody had a car, and you were building interstates. You know, what didn't happen exactly that quickly? That took 50 years. But nobody had a smartphone, and then everyone had a smartphone. You look at 2005, BlackBerries. You look at 2012, iPhones. We have not hit that inflection in Bitcoin. Why? Well, first of all, we just haven't gotten to that point yet. But two, we have not seen the environment conducive enough to Bitcoin's growth, because whenever Bitcoin, and this is, I think, one of the key parts of it, whenever Bitcoin is in good times, i.e., quantitative easing or no QE and no QT at all, just flatlined balance sheet, and whenever you have 0% interest rates and you have a healthy growth in the stock market, when you see that occurring, Bitcoin does pretty well of its own merit, but not for the right reasons. People get into Bitcoin because they can get rich quick, not because they want to become financially sovereign. That is why we do not talk about financial freedom on this channel. It is not my vision for you to make enough money to go buy a Lamborghini. It is my vision for you to have enough money and enough security of your finances to do whatever it is that God's called you to. And if for some reason God called you to buy a Lambo, which I kind of doubt it because there's other things you can spend the money on, but if for some reason, then go do it. I don't know why. I'm not going to stand in God's shoes. I have no idea. He can do whatever he wants within his own character. I want you to have enough money to be financially sovereign. Most people in the good times get into the space because they want to get rich quick, and that's not what Bitcoin was created for. And so when you have an incongruency between the people that are in the space and the reason the space was created in the first place, then that clashes and it fails. And all those people that got into the space that want to get rich quick, where are they now? They're gone. The market's down. You don't build sustainability on that. When Bitcoin is in hard times, that's where we can actually do some real bedrock growth, because people are not going to get into the space to get rich quick. They're going to get into the space to get financially sovereign slowly. That's why you're here. That's why you're watching this video. You're not here to get rich quick. Come on. You're not. Maybe you started to get rich quick. Maybe you got into space 3 years ago and that was your goal. But at this point, you've probably matured into a realization that, wow, this is not a Ponzi scheme. It's not a BitConnect. Excuse me, I'm still getting over a cold. This is a way that I can build wealth and store it safely in a thermodynamically sound way, where it's not constantly losing value into the ether because of inflation. There's not enough of you yet. But if you understand it, you need to go tell people. That's what I'm doing on this channel. I'm telling people that, look, Bitcoin has a solution to a major problem that humankind has always faced, and that's the inflation of currency and central control of currency. Both of those things are eliminated with Bitcoin. And that is an idea that's very hard to explain to people, but it is a revolutionary one. And oftentimes revolutions can happen in a moment, but oftentimes they take hundreds of years to brew. And maybe we're still brewing. Maybe this whole decade we sit here and brew. There's a challenge in patience for you. What if Bitcoin spends this entire decade just laying foundations? We haven't even started building the steel frame of the skyscraper that takes us to the moon yet. What if that's the case? Are you that patient? I am. I'm willing to be here. I believe in this technology. I believe that Bitcoin solely will be the one that changes the world. I think the altcoins will too. I think the altcoins will change the world in a large number of ways, but I think Bitcoin belongs at number one, and it will for a very long time. As far as the short term, let's look at the chart briefly. There's not much on the chart, so that's why we talk mostly about long term, because you need to know it. The reason I'm so concerned about Bitcoin is because of this. This is March. Bitcoin had a CPI report come in. It was the only bullish thing in the market right then that was driving enthusiasm. Once that CPI report's news wore off, Bitcoin tested 25,236 3 times, couldn't get up there. And because it couldn't sit there, there was no point in trading sideways. The bears took it over because they saw a great shorting opportunity. What are the bulls going to do? Buy right below the resistance that we can't break through? Of course not. So they stepped out of the game and the bears took over and we went into a large downtrend. Same thing will happen in the next 2 weeks if Bitcoin cannot get above 25,236. This is my prediction. If Bitcoin cannot break above 25,236 with confidence and probably set a new local high above the one that we set on Tuesday to show us that we are that confident, if we cannot find confidence enough that the bulls will take us all the way to 28,545, then you will probably see Bitcoin trading back down at 22,808 within the next 30 days. That would be my prediction. It's a relatively bold one, but I'm basically just telling you that we're going to repeat February because we're in the exact same environment that we were in February. Nothing has changed. The SPY is still going down. The Dixie is still going up for the most part. Now, Dixie is, of course, having a little bit of a correction over the last couple of days, but that probably won't last. We are likely going to see a complete failure of Bitcoin to break through 25,236 if we can't get above it with confidence in just the next probably 3 to 5 days. It is possible, and there is hype in the space, and there is money on the sideline, and I don't want to discredit the idea too much because there's absolutely a large likelihood that we could break through 25,236, but I will believe it when I see it. That's my point. If you look at the daily chart, we have a bullish engulfing candlestick, but we do have a shooting star here and a spinning top. Neither of those things are bullish. MACD turned bullish. That's great. RSI sitting up at 60. That's wonderful. We look at Lux Algo. Lux Algo is doing phenomenally as well. We have a strong buy signal on the daily chart. I'm excited about all of these things. Our EQ cloud is not here. Let's pull that up. We're above the EQ cloud. We're above the trend catcher. That's great. I'm excited about these things. Reversal zone's coming down, and we could end up testing that relatively soon. Bitcoin is going to need to fight to get through 25,236, and if it doesn't get above 25,236, then we're still in this accumulation zone where not a lot's happening in Bitcoin, and we're just trying to come up with some way to get into a higher zone where we can bring some hype back. And that's where we stand right now. We're sitting on our hands, as we've been doing for the last couple of months, waiting to see if there is enough hype and enough enthusiasm within our own space to drive this market to the upside. And if not, Bitcoin will struggle. That's my 2 cents. It's my 2 cents. Tell me what you guys think. Do you think Bitcoin is going to struggle over the next few days? I believe so. I believe so, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let's go ahead and read some chat. I will go a few minutes long because we did come in a few minutes late. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We've got 600 people watching live. Make sure to hit that like button if you have not already. Make sure you stay hydrated and stay tuned and hit that subscribe button because we have some videos coming out this weekend. If I recall, when Jebb gets this bearish and talks more doom and gloom, and the more certain he is it's about to turn around. Yeah, the tricky thing is that Bitcoin, I'm not doom and gloom on Bitcoin. I'm just telling you that Bitcoin is going to have trouble. I think Bitcoin is going to struggle. Corey also said, yes, Bitcoin will struggle. All right. Let's see. Marathon, not a sprint for me, Colin McDonald said. That's kind of my point. This is a sprint, and we're kind of in that third mile right there where it gets very difficult and sticky, but you got to stick through it because you can do more than you think you can. No Lambo, can I pay my home off? There you go. That's a good goal. I'm here to get into real estate, honestly. Fair enough. Real estate's a pretty solid investment. I do think it'll be one of the more durable investments, but just be careful with the interest rates and everything. It's going to be a great idea. It's going to be a great idea to get into real estate relatively soon if you're able to buy the property in cash. If you're having to deal with a loan with these insane interest rates, then good luck, my friend. Let's see. When Obama took Ukraine's 2,000 nukes, Putin smiled. If you're talking about the nukes that were left in Ukraine following the collapse of the Soviet Union, they gave those nukes to Russia long before Obama, and also they didn't have the ability to actually launch them because all of the command and control was in the Russian motherland. They had no ability to use those nukes. They were completely useless. They would have had to completely destroy them and rebuild them with the nuclear material. They gave them back over because they didn't want to be a nuclear power, and they probably do wish they had them right now, but they couldn't use them anyway. So. Let's see. I heard more retail investors as a whole are starting to get more Bitcoin. I certainly hope so. All right. Queen's in chat. Hello, Queen. We've got Brief Crypto in chat. What's up, Brief Crypto? Said good morning. Good morning to you as well. Let's see. Fees to send Bitcoin outrageous. Yep. They're not right now, but they have been in the past. That's why you need a layer 2 if you're going to fully lubricate the systems that it's going to operate in. CBD Study in chat said, good morning, Jebb. When y'all having the baby? That's kind of up to her. But as far as not up to Sarah, that's kind of up to the baby because the baby's head down right now, ready to come out. But she could come out today or she can come out in a month. We don't really know. We shall see on that. We're just praying that she's healthy and comes out at the proper time, not a minute early or late. Let's see. Rental properties and have tenant pay off loan, refinance and use equity to get another property. Yes, that is a great model. The tricky thing is to get somebody to rent for a high enough payment that you're not actually having to spend money every single month because the interest is so high. If you're able to buy the house even if you're able to put half down or something just so you're not spending that much money on interest, you'll be better off. All right, guys. Well, I really appreciate all of you guys tuning in. I am going to have to go ahead and wrap it out, but I'm very excited because we've got some content coming out over the weekend that I think you guys are going to really love. So stay tuned for that. If you have not already, make sure to sign up for Lux Algo. It is an incredible technical indicator that's going to help you understand exactly where Bitcoin is and where Bitcoin's going. You can find a link for that in the description box down below. Use coupon code Jebb, J-E-B-B, for 20% off at checkout. And also, make sure to sign up for Club DeFi's Principles of Technical Analysis. Use the link in the description box down below as well, or by going to cryptojebb.com, and you can scroll down and hit that button. Really appreciate all of you guys on that. Grand Roofing said, sorry I've not been in chat, but here listening and in spirit on the ladder working. There you go. Good to see you, Grand Roofing. Hope you are well. All right, guys, like I said, I am going to have to go ahead and wrap it out. But before I go, I do just first want to thank each and every single last one of you for watching, as always. And I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.